Hey everybody, what's going on? The Montreal Canadiens are coming off of a horrific performance last night against the San Jose Sharks, and there's plenty to dive into in this video. But before we do that, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It's as easy as looking in the bottom right-hand corner of this video and clicking the subscribe button. The Montreal Canadiens are a very young team, and there's going to be growing pains along the way into turning this team into a playoff contender on a yearly basis. But when you look at what the performance that they had last night against the San Jose Sharks means, it's just an unacceptable performance when you look at what this team is trying to accomplish right now. We're not suggesting they're going to stay in the playoff race. That's unrealistic for where they are in the rebuild. But we want them to play competitive games and show up in terms of their effort on a nightly basis. And last night they had no effort whatsoever in a game against the San Jose Sharks, which on effort alone you should be able to beat that team. But the Montreal Canadiens did not show any effort, and that stemmed from the entire team last night. It wasn't just a few players not showing up. No one was ready to play from the puck drop. They were outplayed in all three periods of this game against a dismal San Jose Sharks team that had lost double digits in games in a row and was just not in any condition to be able to play against this Montreal Canadiens team. It's unacceptable to use the game that the Montreal Canadiens were in from the get-go. They tried to make a game of it late and they were unable to do that, which is flattering because the scoreline really shouldn't have been as tight as it was. Sam Montembeault was once again really strong. He was the only member of the Montreal Canadiens that really came to play last night, and it showed. He continues to demonstrate why he's likely the number one goalie until there's a replacement, a suitable replacement that is in the system, whether that's Jacob Fowler or one of the other goalies that the Montreal Canadiens have drafted. Montembeault has earned that number one status, and you're likely going to see him continue riding down the stretch for this team, especially if they do ultimately move Jake Allen, which I would say personally is about an 80% chance right now that they do move Jake Allen ahead of the NHL trade deadline this year. But they're going to be patient in that aspect. They're not going to have their hand forced. They're going to get what they want, or they're not going to move him, as they don't really have to, as he's still under contract next season. So I think there's a lot of aspects that you can be confident about when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens goaltending right now. But in terms of their effort against the San Jose Sharks, that's just unacceptable. You can win a lot of hockey games on effort alone, but the Montreal Canadiens just didn't show up last night, and they didn't deserve any amount of points in that contest. And it showed when the Montreal Canadiens were ultimately humiliated by losing to the San Jose Sharks, one of the statistically worst teams in NHL history. And I think that that's going to be a wake-up call for a lot of these players. I don't want to necessarily say that all of the young players didn't show up last night. It just wasn't a collective effort. No one was in sync. The effort wasn't there. And in those kind of situations, it's a learning moment. Martin St. Louis was pretty critical of how the team performed last night, and rightfully so, but he has to take some accountability for that as well. You have to be looking from the top down, and in this situation, St. Louis clearly didn't have the team ready to play in this matchup, which is disappointing because it was one of those games where you would have liked to build confidence from some of the young players like Savkovsky, like Suzuki, like Caulfield, who did have their chances in the game, but could have been more consistent overall, which you would have liked to see against the dismal San Jose Sharks team. So I think there's a lot to learn from a game like this, and it's unfortunate that they had to learn it in the fashion that they did. But I think you're going to see a much better effort moving forward, and you're not going to see complacency in these matchups against the lower tier teams. The Montreal Canadiens are realistically still one of those lower tier teams, so they can't take matchups like that for granted, and they're going to have to continue showing that they can win games on effort and they can win games on how they're coached and the freedom in their offensive system, but they have to not be able to take those nights off, especially in a game where they just assumed they would be able to show up and get 2 points, judging by how horrific the San Jose Sharks had been this season, and that just wasn't ultimately the case. So the bottom line here is this was a big learning experience for the Montreal Canadiens, and it's something that they hopefully don't see happen again for the remainder of this season. That's it for me today from Cook's Corner. As always, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought of the Montreal Canadiens' effort last night against the San Jose Sharks and what you think this team is going to look like moving forward. I'm Zach Cook. We'll see you later.